Hello there, Ungainly Titan here. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and once again I want to talk about Fort Triumph. This time in more of my impressions and some commentary I have about the game and a kind of an analysis, review type video. But while I am here, why on earth would you need to left click the mouse button to show the menu? Show the main menu? Should it not just come up automatically? It just strikes me as completely purposeless and rather inane. Now, to get back to what I was going to say about Fort Triumph. Well, the update 8.0 is a pretty major update. Now, I hadn't played around with it very extensively prior to this, so I don't know how much changes has been made in the game that are specific to this update. But initially I just plunged in, played the, tutorial, and continued on from there. And the whole play was kind of focused towards a particular story arc. You go in, you play the tutorial, the mage meets the barbarian, you meet the other two characters, you arrive at the town, you rescue or attempt to rescue the villagers, you fail, you follow or pursue the goblins, into this case, into the cavern. You follow the goblins, you capture Garbarik the Terrible, you find out that he's working for this ancient lich and these ancient one warriors in this ancient one crypt, and Claude the Agoraphobic is running it, and he's got a rather inane reason, and the whole thing is a bit tongue-in-cheek. But it has a kind of a campaign arc with Claude the Agoraphobic as the villain. And this chapter continues on from that kind of a theme. So the game gives you the impression that it's a standard enough RPG, but just with tactical combat in the XCOM Enemy Unknown style mode. One of the things that immediately strikes you about this game is what exactly is the theme or objective of this game. Now, personally, I'm quite enamored with the idea of D&D with an XCOM combat, and I'm pretty reasonably okay with high levels of lethality among the party. It harks back to the original D&D. But you have very light-hearted kind of satiric or ironic fourth wall breaking dialogue at the start and the end of the scenarios. And if you start out with the prologue and continue into the next chapter, it looks like you're playing a standard enough adventure. Epic heroes pursuing a particular arch enemy, following a particular theme, and the combat's a bit too lethal for a light-hearted game. You're going to lose a lot of characters, and there's going to be a fair bit of attrition over the course of the campaign if you're running a campaign arc in the game, and I'm not too sure that's what they're doing, or they're making it a more open world exploration type game. And I think the attrition is going to contrast strongly, particularly as characters level up and you kind of get to know them better, with the rather light-hearted and sort of in fourth wall breaking dialogue that goes on at the start and the end of a lot of the combats in the sort of cutscenes, what you might describe. I still think that those cutscenes would be much enhanced with actual voice acting. It would enhance the characters and make them far more individualized if they had their own voice acting. Now, you'd probably need multiple voice actor sets when you come to the customization of characters to allow a full range of customization. But the problem with the heroic Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter Nights, Dragon Age style RPG and the XCOM highly attritional style combat is that your original party is very unlikely to make it to the end of the adventure. So it won't seem that heroical in that fashion. That's not to say you're not going to get high level characters and you won't finish up with a party of high level characters, but it's going to be very like original D&D, AD&D, 80s era D&D, where the attrition rate among player characters, was accepted generally. Certainly among the groups that I played, and it was accepted that a lot of your low-level characters would die, and that you'd bring on replacement characters. And in part, the whole henchman system was there to facilitate the bringing on of replacement characters, so that you had rough templated secondary and tertiary characters available among your hench people, so that when your primary character died, you could bring these on and continue on adventuring, or you could retire the primary character if it got high enough a level. We never really bothered with the Stronghold wargame aspect for high level play from the name to level onwards, but there were groups that did that too, and I think that was the kind of mode Gygax envisioned that AD&D would be played in. This game could facilitate that kind of play, this high level estate management type game as well, very, very well. But that doesn't seem to be what they're going for. The world map then is a bit different as well, in the sense that the world map is facilitating a kind of an open world exploratory type game, and there's no particular time criticality in the dungeons you explore. They're available in kind of contracts to the players, and you can explore them in any order you want, and it just benefits certain factions, and you gain certain benefits by getting favour with certain factions. But I think it leaves the game in a little bit of a no man's land in terms of the theme it's kind of selling. And I think it could do with letting the player know more strongly what kind of theme it's going for. I actually think, as it's currently set up, it's most strongly an exploration type game. Sandbox, what would be referred to in D&D terms as a sandbox campaign, where you have areas of the world map, wilderness that you can explore around, and there are sort of low-level monsters in this area, and as you move further away from your base of operations, your original base of operations, you move into more and more dangerous territories. So you can have low-level threats that you can train up replacement characters in, but you can gradually clear areas out, and then you have to find other places of low-level threats to train up replacement characters. And there's other areas that you can explore with the high-level characters. I actually think that's the theme they should go for. It's sufficiently different from everything else that is possibly, it would be a unique selling point, and certainly I would enjoy it. I mean, I enjoy it as it stands, just footling around with the units and just playing it, and I find it, once you start, it's quite addictive. You just want to see what this bit, that bit. But there are elements of just communication with the players, what is expected, that I think need to be addressed. The next issue I want to talk about is combat. I have a few issues with the combat system. The combat system, as I've said before, most closely resembles to me, to my experience, the combat system I've seen in XCOM Enemy Unknown, and it's pretty much very simple. You have 2 action points, and your unit can use these action points in the course of their turn, and the turn it's turn based, so it's not simultaneous movement. You get to consider where you're putting your unit. So you can attack, and that will, at the start of your turn, that will consume your 2 action points. You can move 1 action point to get yourself into a position to attack, and then you can attack again from the second action point. Or you can do a double movement, where you use both your action points and moving, get yourself into a position, and that's it. Unless you have something that gives you an extra action point, like a potion of action. Or, yeah, an action potion, or whatever it's called. You have melee and ranged units, and the ranged units can do Overwatch, which, again, is identical to XCOM in that ranged units can do Overwatch. And Overwatch allows you basically a reaction fire to enemy movement. The problem I have with it is, there's a couple of things that I want to talk about. I think the melee side of the thing is the biggest area that's problematic in the game. That and a little bit with the environment. The environmental tricks, kicking over trees, kicking rocks into the enemy, kicking the enemy into the enemy, is more effective than, in my opinion, currently, than melee combat. And I don't think that should be the case. I think equally effective, I have no problem with, but more effective is a bit of a problem, in my opinion. And in fact, in some cases, the only way to handle the fights is to use the environment to get multiple damage on enemies per round with the melee characters, and to trigger opportunity attacks using forced movement. Now, I'm going to get into this in more detail. Overall, I think melee characters are a little bit weak, and I think part of the problem is the melee combat's 100% hit chance. If you get into melee range and you have the opportunity to do a melee attack, you're going to hit. And the only defense that you have is your hit point buffer. I think the game would be a bit better if there was an actual defense. I think a 100% hit chance is all very well in a game like XCOM, where everybody's effectively a ranged fighter. And everybody can effectively go into Overwatch if that's the way you set your combat up, which can be very, very powerful. But in this game, in For Triumph, your melee characters have no interceptability. They have no way of softening up the enemy as they're approaching. They can use the environment to do it, but I think that makes the environment more powerful than their melee options, which I don't think should be the case. I think the melee option should be valid, rather than just looking for the environmental option at all times. But if you have a defense, you could make the melee characters a bit more sticky, which means they could be more effective at protecting the ranged characters, so that you could then have a balance where the range are fragile and the melee characters are strong. But certainly, maybe not all the melee characters to be sticky, but certainly the armored one, the knight, should, I think, have some kind of defensive capability. I think probably everybody should have some kind of defensive capability. I don't think it should be a 100% auto hit on melee. But I know that the original combat system they're taken from, that's the way it works. It's more or less 100% to hit if you're close and you're out in the open, which is fine when everybody's making range attacks. But I think when you're in a melee situation, parrying and dodging and the use of armor should be a valid part of a valid defense. Now, I'm quite happy with armor as additional hit points. Essentially, armor gives you the ability to soak damage or a damage reduction, rather than making you harder to hit. I think that paradigm from Dungeons and Dragons was a mistake at the beginning, but it's just embedded into that game, and everybody's become used to it. But the other side effect of the 100% effectiveness of melee attack or melee chances of hitting is I think that it makes the combat characters, the melee characters, a little bit less effective, and I also think their opportunity attacks are a bit weak. So far, most of the time that I've seen opportunity attacks triggered, they've triggered as a result of force movement. I very rarely see them trigger as a result of monster movement. I've seen it once, I think, in a good few fights now at this stage that I've done. Whereas this also means that the melee characters aren't that terribly sticky. I think anybody stepping out of range of a melee character should trigger an attack of opportunity, and therefore should be a tactical consideration. Do you want to step out of melee range of this guy, or do you want to fight him first? I think the melee character should be a bit stickier. They should be able to stop, particularly the knight, should be able to stop enemy units from attacking the ranged characters. Protect the mage, protect the ranger. I'd be less concerned about the barbarian because it's kind of a mobile melee fighter as its shtick, and I wouldn't be as bothered, but I do think that the attack of opportunity could be made a bit more powerful if the characters had a defense, and the same applied to the enemy units. Like, if they have a defense, they'd be more likely to risk the movement away from a melee character. But you could also make the melee characters more sticky by giving them a kind of a reaction move. Say within a certain zone, if an enemy unit gets close enough, it triggers a reaction move if they're in the appropriate stance. So again, it would there serve to protect the squishier ranged fighters that are lined up behind them. Probably also would require some kind of healing system. And the other thing that I'm looking at there is you're zooming into various pots. These are all environmental effects. Some of them are healing, some of them are smoke, some seem to be fire. A lot of them I don't know what they do. Some of them are cold, I think. It's not clear or obvious what they do immediately when you look at it in the game, and there should be some kind of a tooltip saying what the effect is. at least once you've interacted with it once, so that you can remember and remind yourself of what it is that you have discovered. I don't mind a player discovering a thing. The other thing I think about those pots is that they should be breakable with melee attacks. Because if you, at the moment, you can only interact with them in the attacks, or the attacks designed to interact with the environment. So the kick, you can kick them. But that means they don't break where you kick them, they break when they bounce off of something. And I think you should be able to break them in situ with melee or range attacks, so that you can guarantee the effect. Some final thoughts on the combat side of things. One of the things that I would like to see the addition of would be healing kits, or some means for one character to heal another character, even if they have to move up to them. This then would allow, I think, a bit like the healing kit again on XCOM, but it would allow something less abrupt than just death when a character is dropped to 0. That the characters might have a chance of getting into a critical condition where you'd have so many rounds to save them. So you'd have a countdown timer, and if you don't save Johnny or Tharora or Leandra or whatever in 3, 2, 3, 4 rounds, they're dead. It would add kind of tension to the fight. Now, of course, if you end the fight, you save them automatically. And maybe coupling that with a wound system where you have the high level character, but they're wounded and they're going to be out of action for the next 3 weeks. So you have to substitute in a lower level character, and you have a kind of a roster of characters, a bit again like your barracks force in XCOM. But I think instead of just having a sudden death character drops out, there's the possibility of saving the character if you can pull off the fight. I think it would make the thing a little bit more epic. Does the Paladin's revival aura automatically stabilize them? Maybe, maybe not. But I definitely think some kind of healing system and stabilization and the opportunity to stabilize down characters would be an addition to the game, would be an enhancement, and it would actually benefit the game. That's pretty much it, I think, on the environmental and combat side of things. One final thing that I want to note is I think the world map is fine. It certainly serves its purpose, and it gives a good basis for exploring the area and a good reason to actually go around it. There's enough going on in it to actually make it quite interesting, and certainly you can spend your time just tootling around the map without ever tackling the major adventures, the major chapters. And it strikes me as that there may be utility in tootling around the map, because removing stuff from the map seems to me also to remove stuff from the access to the bad guys. Now, party inventory, I think it's too restricted where it's available. That I think at the very least, the first time you enter the dungeon before you move, you should have access to the party inventory in order to just move stuff around. The third thing is that I've been in the inn several times. I've even bought stuff in the inn, and it never occurred to me that what I was spending was magic. So the pools of magic that you see floating around in the countryside are actually money. This is what you spend, this is your currency. I'm not saying the game didn't tell me, but I certainly didn't notice it doing so. And I think it should be more obvious. Just saying. Other than that, I think it's very interesting. It has a lot of potential. I just think it could do with a little bit of a direction, I think, and maybe some few tweaks. And it was, well, I think it's a good game as it stands, but I think it could be a great game. I definitely look forward to future developments in this game. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it interesting. If you did, please give it a like and a thumbs up below. And if you've not already done so, please subscribe to the channel. That also really helps the channel out. And you can look forward to more videos. Press the notification button and you'll find out about all the other videos I upload. See you all again soon. Bye for now.